Hi everyone, my name is Maya Bennett. I'm 32 years old. At Christmas dinner, my father mocked me for being single in front of the whole family. And when my mother said some people end up alone for a reason, I smiled, set my fork down, and told them the truth I had kept for 4 years. I'm not alone, I said. I've been married for years. The dining room went dead quiet. Not peaceful quiet, dangerous quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a glass cracks but before anyone sees the blood. My father's hand came down on the table so hard the forks jumped against the plates. My aunt flinched. My cousin's wife grabbed her wine glass before it tipped. My younger sister, Brooke, stopped smiling with a piece of cranberry sauce still on her fork. My mother looked at me like I had spit on the tablecloth. "What did you say?" I looked around the Christmas table at the people who had spent 32 years treating my life like a group project they were disappointed to be assigned. Then I said it again. I said, I'm married. My father stood halfway out of his chair. To who? Not congratulations. Not are you happy. To who? Like marriage was another thing I had done incorrectly and he needed the name of the witness. I took a slow breath. The room smelled like roasted turkey, pine candles, and the expensive cinnamon spray my mother used every December to make the house feel warmer than it was. The tree glittered behind her. Gold ribbon, white lights, matching ornaments. A perfect family Christmas staged in a house where nobody ever learned how to be kind without an audience. My mother's glass was still sitting in front of her. She had set it down 5 seconds before destroying me. That was how this started. Dinner had been almost normal at first. Normal for us, I mean. Brooke was late by 40 minutes and still got applause when she arrived because she brought a store-bought pie and announced she had barely survived traffic. My mother rushed to take her coat. Dad poured her wine. Everyone asked about her promotion, her apartment, her new boyfriend, her plans for New Year's. When I walked in earlier with 2 trays of roasted vegetables I had cooked, because Mom said she was overwhelmed, Dad looked at me and said, "Put those in the kitchen, sweetheart." Sweetheart. He only called me that when he needed labor to sound like affection. That had always been my role. The reliable daughter. The one who came early, stayed late, washed serving spoons, remembered allergies, bought extra batteries for toys, and got thanked with leftovers wrapped in foil. Brooke was the daughter who arrived. I was the daughter who prepared the room for her arrival. So I should have expected the conversation to turn. It always did. My cousin Angela asked if I was seeing anyone, and before I could answer, Brooke laughed. "Maya doesn't date," she said. "She audits men emotionally until they leave." Everyone chuckled. Not because it was funny, because cruelty is easier to swallow when the pretty sister says it lightly. I kept cutting my turkey. Dad leaned back in his chair. "Well, she is 32 now. Standards have to meet reality eventually." My uncle muttered, "Careful." But Dad was smiling. He had an audience, and my embarrassment had always been one of his favorite holiday dishes. "What?" he said. "I'm just saying. Christmas makes people reflect. A woman can't spend her whole life acting impossible and then wonder why nobody stays." Brooke looked down, pretending to hide a smile. My mother set her glass down then, carefully. Like a judge about to deliver sentence, she looked me over from my plain black dress to my hands folded in my lap and said, "Some people end up alone for a reason." The table went quiet. Waiting. That was the part I noticed. They were not shocked. They were waiting. Waiting for me to shrink like I used to. Waiting for the old Maya to make it easier for everyone by laughing weakly, lowering her eyes, and disappearing into the kitchen with plates. I had done that for years. I had swallowed so much at that table, I sometimes wondered if my body knew the difference between dinner and punishment. But that Christmas, something in me was done making their comfort look like peace. So I smiled. Not big, not dramatic. Just enough for my mother to notice something had changed. "I'm not alone," I said. "I've been married for years." That was when Dad hit the table. Now he was standing, face flushed, napkin fallen from his lap to the floor. "Married?" he said. "You're telling us you got married and didn't tell your family?" "My husband knows my family," I said. That made my mother's face sharpen. Brooke's eyes narrowed. Dad pointed one finger at me. "Then why the hell have we never met him?" I looked at the empty chair beside me, the chair my mother had removed before dinner because, in her words, there's no point setting a place for someone imaginary. Then I looked back at my father. "You did meet him," I said. His expression shifted. Just slightly. Not recognition. Fear of recognition. I reached into my purse and took out the small cream envelope I had carried all evening. My thumb ran over the edge once before I set it on the table beside my plate. Inside was one photograph, one document, and one letter my grandmother had written before she died. My mother saw the handwriting on the envelope first. Her face changed so fast I almost missed it. Dad noticed. Brooke noticed too. The whole table leaned toward the silence. My father's voice dropped. "What is that?" I kept my hand on the envelope. "The reason I didn't invite you to my wedding," I said, "and the reason Grandma was the only person from this family who was there." Nobody touched the envelope. That was how I knew they were afraid of it. My family had never been afraid of my feelings. Feelings could be dismissed. Tears could be called dramatic. Silence could be filled with whatever version made them look better. But paper was different. Paper stayed. My father stared at the cream envelope beside my plate and said, "Maya, don't make a scene." I almost laughed. He had mocked me in front of the whole Christmas table, slammed his hand so hard the forks jumped, demanded to know why he had never met my husband, and somehow I was the one making a scene. That was my family's special talent. They could throw the match, watch the curtains catch, and then blame you for pointing at the smoke. I opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. I placed it in the center of the table. It was from my wedding day. Not a big wedding, not a ballroom, not a church packed with relatives, not a reception where my mother could arrange flowers and criticize my dress. Just a courthouse garden in early spring, gray sky, white flowers, my grandmother in a navy dress beside me, and Ethan holding my hand like he knew exactly what it had cost me to stand there without them. Brooke leaned forward first. Her face changed because she knew him. Of course she did. My father picked up the photograph. "That's Ethan Cole." "Yes." "The contractor?" "My husband." The table went quiet again, but this time it was different. The first silence had been shock. This one had memory inside it, because Dad had met Ethan before, twice. Once at a charity auction where he spent 10 minutes praising him for being a young man with vision, and once in our kitchen when Ethan came to pick me up after one of Mom's backyard dinners. I had introduced him as a friend. That was my cowardice, or maybe my survival. Back then, I was still trying to keep the only peaceful part of my life away from the people who knew how to turn anything mine into something small. Brooke remembered that night, too. I could see it in her eyes. She had flirted with him in front of me, touched his arm, asked about his business, laughed too loudly. My mother had watched with approval, and my father had asked Ethan if he had found a serious woman yet. Brooke had smiled and said, "Careful, Dad. I might call dibs." Everyone laughed. Ethan didn't. Later in the car, he said, "They don't just overlook you, Maya. They enjoy placing you beneath her." I defended them then. That is what daughters like me do before we are ready to call the wound by its real name. My mother stared at the photo. "You married Ethan Cole and didn't tell us? You were laughing about me being alone 5 minutes ago. That is not the same thing." "It is exactly the same thing." Dad's face flushed. "Why would you hide this from your own family?" I reached back into the envelope and took out the second paper, our marriage certificate, then the third, Grandma's letter. The moment my mother saw her handwriting, something in her expression cracked. I unfolded it. My grandmother told me not to. "Read this." unless you used my loneliness as entertainment again. Dad's jaw tightened. So you planned this? No, I said. You did. I just came prepared. Then I read. If Maya is reading this at a family table, then someone has mocked her for being alone. I am sorry, sweetheart. They always confused your privacy with emptiness. My aunt lowered her eyes. Brooke sat back slowly. I kept reading. Your father will ask why he was not told. Your mother will make the secrecy about herself. Brooke will act wounded that she was not centered in your joy. Let them. A family that demands access to your happiness before offering respect has mistaken love for ownership. My mother whispered, Enough. I did not stop, not this time. I was at your wedding because I knew how long it took you to believe something good could belong to you without first being inspected, ranked, or handed to your sister. Brooke looked up. There it was. The sentence everyone at that table understood, because they all knew the pattern. Brooke got the attention. Brooke got the rescue. Brooke got the benefit of every doubt. I got errands, criticism, leftovers, and the family's favorite word for me, difficult. Grandma's letter continued. I watched them call Brooke sensitive when she was selfish and call Maya difficult when she was honest. I watched your mother praise one daughter for shining and use the other daughter as shade. My father stood. Your grandmother was bitter. I folded the letter down and looked at him. No, I said. She was invited. That hurt him. Good. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true. Grandma had not been excluded from my wedding. They had. My mother looked at the photo again, her voice suddenly thin. So he knows about us? That was her real fear. Not that I had been hurt, not that I had married without her, that someone respectable had seen the family clearly and still chosen me. Yes, I said, he knows. Brooke's face twisted. Then where is he? If you're so happily married, why isn't your husband here? Before I could answer, headlights swept across the dining room window. My heart gave one slow, hard beat. Ethan had not wanted me to come alone. I told him I needed to try. He said he would wait nearby, and if I wanted to leave, I only had to text one word, home. The front door opened. Cold air moved through the house. A second later, Ethan stepped into the dining room, coat over one arm, face calm, eyes on me first. Not my father, not my mother, not Brooke. Me. Then he said, You ready to go home? Ethan's voice did not rise. That was what made it powerful. My father had built half his authority on volume. He believed a loud man could bend a room before anyone noticed he had not said anything worth hearing. But Ethan stood in the doorway, calm and still, and the whole table shifted toward him anyway. Brooke stared like someone had reached into a story she thought she owned and moved the ending. My mother was the first to recover. Ethan, she said, suddenly warm. What a surprise. I almost laughed. 5 minutes earlier, she had called me alone for a reason. Now she was smoothing her voice for my husband like the tablecloth could still be saved. Ethan nodded once. Mrs. Bennett. Not Mom, not Sharon, Mrs. Bennett. The distance was polite enough to be surgical. Dad stepped around his chair. You're telling me you married my daughter and never thought to come speak to me? Ethan looked at him. I asked Maya what she wanted. Dad blinked. Excuse me? She said she wanted peace, so I protected that. The table went quiet again. My father was not used to men treating my wishes like instructions. Brooke crossed her arms. That's convenient. She hides a whole marriage, and now you're acting noble. Ethan finally looked at her. Not angrily. Worse. Accurately. You tried to ask me out in your parents' kitchen while your sister was standing 10 feet away. Brooke's face went red. My aunt made a small sound into her napkin. Dad turned toward Brooke. What? Brooke snapped. I didn't know. Ethan said, That was the problem. You didn't ask who I was to her. You just assumed if Maya had something good near her, it was available. I stared at him, because that was the whole family pattern in one sentence. My mother's mouth tightened. That is unfair. I looked at her. Is it? She didn't answer. Ethan came around the table and stood beside my chair. He did not touch me right away. He knew better. He let me decide whether I wanted comfort in front of people who had used every softness against me. I reached for his hand. That was my answer. Dad saw our fingers laced together and looked almost offended by it, like affection had been taken from the family account without approval. "How long?" he asked. 4 years, I said. My mother put one hand to her throat. 4 years? Almost 5 together. Brooke laughed once, sharp and ugly. And Grandma knew? She was at the wedding, I said. Dad shook his head. My own mother kept this from me. No, I said. Your daughter kept herself from you. Grandma respected it. That line landed harder than I expected, because for once, the injury could not be redirected. He could not blame Grandma without admitting she had been trusted. He could not blame Ethan without admitting Ethan had chosen me. He could not blame me without explaining why I believed hiding happiness was safer than sharing it. My uncle finally spoke. Maya, why didn't you tell any of us? It was not cruel. That made it harder. I looked at him, then at the rest of the table. Because this family doesn't receive good news from me. It audits it. Nobody moved. I continued before I lost the nerve. When Brooke got promoted, everyone asked how to celebrate. When I got my first management role, Dad asked if the company was desperate. When Brooke ended a relationship, Mom said she was protecting her heart. When I ended one, everyone said I was too hard to love. My mother whispered, "We never said that." I looked at her. "You said it tonight." Her face changed. Not enough, but enough. Ethan reached into his coat pocket and placed one more thing beside Grandma's letter, a small photo, not from the wedding, from the week after. Grandma sitting in our tiny apartment, eating takeout from paper plates, laughing so hard her hand was over her mouth. I was beside her in jeans, not a wedding dress. Ethan was half in the frame, setting down cups. It was ordinary. That was why it hurt. Grandma had not only attended the ceremony, she had been invited into the life after it. Mom picked up the photo with trembling fingers. "She went to your apartment." "Many times," I said. Dad's voice lowered. "Behind our backs." I shook my head. "Outside your reach." Ethan's thumb brushed over my knuckles. The room held its breath. Then my mother did what she always did when truth got too close. She turned herself into the victim. "Do you know what it feels like," she said, voice breaking, "to find out your daughter got married and chose not to include you?" For 32 years, that would have worked. Her tears would have rearranged the room. Someone would have looked at me like I had gone too far. I would have softened, apologized, explained, made her pain smaller by swallowing mine. But Grandma's letter was still open on the table. So I picked it up again. "There's more," I said. Mom froze. I read the next paragraph. "If Sharon cries when she learns she was excluded, ask her whether she cried when Maya learned to stop bringing joy home. Ask her whether a daughter hides a husband because she is cruel or because her mother trained her to expect harm whenever she was happy." The table stayed silent. My mother's tears kept falling, but they no longer controlled the room. That was new. Brooke stood abruptly. "I can't listen to this," Ethan said. "Then don't." She glared at him. He stayed calm. I looked at Brooke. "Sit down or leave, but don't perform injury because Grandma told the truth." Her lips parted. No sound came. Dad grabbed his glass, took a drink, and set it down too hard. "You're enjoying this." "No," I said. "I'm surviving it out loud." That sentence quieted even him. For a long moment, all I heard was the Christmas music playing softly from the living room. Silver bells, a fireplace crackling on the television, the fake warmth of a holiday that had finally run out of costume. Then Ethan leaned close enough that only I could hear. "We can go." I looked at the table, at my mother's perfect centerpiece, at my father's red face, at Brooke standing there furious because the spotlight had finally burned her instead of me, and I realized I did not want to run. Not yet. I wanted to finish what Grandma had started. I pulled the last folded page from the envelope. My father saw the legal letterhead before I unfolded it. His expression changed. "What is that?" I looked at him. "The part Grandma left for you." My father did not reach for the page. For the first time all night, he looked less angry than careful. That scared me more. Anger was easy for him. Anger was furniture in our house. It had a chair at every table, a voice in every hallway, a place beside every version of my childhood. But caution? Caution meant he recognized danger. I unfolded the page and saw Grandma's handwriting at the top, followed by Arthur Bell's law office letterhead beneath it. Grandma had always loved doing things twice when she knew people would try to deny the first version. One emotional truth in her own words, one legal truth with someone else's signature attached. Dad's voice came low. "Maya." I looked at him. He did not say don't. He did not say stop. He said my name like a warning. I read anyway. "Richard, if Maya is reading this in front of you, then you have done what I expected. You have made her private life into evidence against her while refusing to ask why she protected it from you." My father's face darkened. Ethan stood beside me, silent. Grandma's words continued. "You always believed respect was owed to you because you were the father. You rarely asked whether you had earned the kind of trust that makes a daughter bring joy home." My uncle looked down at his plate. My aunt pressed her napkin to her mouth. Nobody defended him. That was new, too. Dad's whole life had been padded by people who softened his edges for him. Mom translated him. Brooke charmed around him. Relatives laughed off his insults as old-fashioned. I absorbed them. But Grandma's letter left no soft place for his pride to land. I kept reading. "I have watched you mock Maya for being cautious, too serious, too hard to impress, too hard to love. I have watched you reward Brooke for needing rescue and punish Maya for needing respect. Do not pretend surprise that the daughter you turned into a target learned to build a life outside your range." Brooke whispered, "This is unbelievable." I looked up. "It is, isn't it?" She flinched. Because for once I did not mean the letter. I meant us. Dad pushed back his chair again, but this time he did not stand. "What is the legal page?" he asked. So he had seen it. Of course he had. He could endure being called cruel if he thought cruelty was just opinion. The letterhead was different. I placed Grandma's handwritten page down and lifted the typed document beneath it. "This is the amendment Grandma made to her estate plan after my wedding." My mother's hand flew to her throat. There it was. The thing she had been waiting for without knowing its name. Estate. Money did what pain could not. It made everyone suddenly fluent in consequences. Dad's voice sharpened. "Your grandmother's estate has nothing to do with this." "She thought it did?" Ethan squeezed my hand once, then let go so I could turn the page. I read from the typed section. "Any attempt by Richard Bennett, Sharon Bennett, or Brooke Bennett to challenge, punish, publicly shame, or financially pressure Maya Bennett Cole because of her private marriage shall result in the immediate removal of their discretionary shares." My mother whispered, "Bennett Cole?" Brooke's head snapped toward me. I almost smiled. That was the part that bothered them. Not that I had been humiliated, not that Grandma had seen it, that my name had changed somewhere beyond their permission. Dad stood then. "This is ridiculous. She can't control how we react to being lied to." Arthur's note anticipated that too. I read the next line. "For clarity, Maya's decision not to disclose her marriage shall not be considered deception for purposes of this clause. It shall be considered personal privacy, justified by documented family hostility." Documented. My father hated that word, because it took the family out of the fog and put it under glass. My mother's voice trembled. Documented by who? I looked at Grandma's letter. Grandma. Nobody asked what she had documented. They already knew. The Christmas insults. The old birthday cards where Brooke's name filled the first paragraph and mine appeared after the grocery list. The family group chat where Dad joked that I would probably marry a tax auditor if I ever found a man patient enough. The voicemail Mom left after my 31st birthday saying she worried I had become emotionally uninviting. I had deleted that voicemail. Grandma apparently had not. Brooke sat down slowly. So what? Grandma paid you for getting married? No, I said. She protected me from being punished for it. Dad laughed harshly. Punished? We're your family. Ethan spoke then, quietly. That's why it mattered. Dad turned on him. You stay out of this. Ethan did not move. I did, for 4 years, because Maya asked me to. The room went still. He continued, calm as ever. I watched her leave family dinners with a headache from pretending your insults didn't land. I watched her rehearse phone calls before making them because one wrong sentence could become a week of punishment. I watched her hide good news because your family has a habit of treating her happiness like something that needs correction. My mother's face crumpled. Brooke looked away. Dad's jaw tightened, but he had no answer that could survive Ethan's tone. That was the thing about calm truth. It does not give anger much to grab. I folded the document and placed it back on the table. I didn't come here tonight to take anything from you, I said. I came because it was Christmas, and part of me still hoped you could get through one dinner without turning my life into a punchline. Dad looked at me like I had betrayed him. Maybe I had. Not by getting married, by becoming unavailable for the old role. My mother started crying softly. Maya, you should have told me. I looked at her for a long time. I wanted to. That shut her up. Because the truth was not that I enjoyed excluding her. The truth was that I had once wanted my mother at my wedding so badly it hurt. I wanted her helping me button a dress. I wanted her crying in the front row. I wanted her to look at me for once like I was not a comparison she had lost interest in finishing. But wanting something does not make it safe. I picked up the wedding photo. Grandma told me that love should make joy feel bigger, not more vulnerable. My voice almost broke on the last word. Ethan's hand found the back of my chair. Dad stared at the table. Then Brooke said the cruelest thing she could still find. So you married up and hid him like some prize. I turned toward her. No, I hid him like something alive. That silenced the whole room, even Brooke, because she understood, maybe not fully, but enough. I gathered the photograph, certificate, and letter, one by one, slowly. No shaking this time. My mother whispered, "Are you leaving?" I looked at Ethan, then at the empty chair they had removed before dinner. "No," I said. "First I'm putting his plate back." Nobody moved. For a second, I don't think they understood what I meant. Then my mother's eyes went to the chair folded against the wall near the china cabinet. The extra chair. The one she had removed before dinner because, as she said earlier, Maya never brings anyone anyway. Ethan saw it too. So did Dad. So did Brooke. That chair had not felt cruel when I first arrived. Not loudly. It was too ordinary for that. Just another small adjustment made around the assumption that my life had no one important enough to include. Now it looked like evidence. I walked to the wall, unfolded the chair, and carried it back to the table myself. Ethan reached for it, but I shook my head. I've got it. And I did. For 32 years, I had carried serving dishes, coats, gifts, expectations, leftovers, and other people's shame. Carrying one chair for my husband felt almost light. I placed it beside mine. Then I went to the kitchen, took a clean plate from the cabinet, a fork from the drawer, and one of the cloth napkins my mother only used when relatives were present. When I came back, everyone was still watching. I set the place neatly. Plate, fork, knife, napkin, water glass, a full setting. For the man my family had decided did not exist because they never bothered to ask if my life had become fuller without them. Ethan sat down beside me, not dramatically, not like he was claiming space, like he belonged because I had invited him. That was enough. My father remained standing for a long moment, then lowered himself into his chair. His face looked older than it had, 20 minutes earlier. Not humbled, exactly. My father was not built for humility to arrive quickly, but something had cracked. The certainty, maybe. The old belief that he could mock me and still expect access to every sacred part of my life. My mother stared at Ethan's plate. "I would have come," she said quietly. I looked at her. To the wedding. That sentence hit me in the chest because some small, foolish part of me had waited years to hear it. But truth has timing, and hers had missed the ceremony by 4 years. "No," I said. "You would have corrected it." Her mouth trembled. I kept going because if I stopped then, I knew I might spend the rest of my life softening the sharpest part. "You would have asked why the dress was so simple, why Brooke wasn't maid of honor, why Dad wasn't walking me down the aisle, why we didn't wait for a better venue, a better season, a better version of me to be proud of." My mother looked down. "You don't know that." I knew it well enough to keep my wedding safe. No one spoke. Brooke stared at the cranberry sauce on her plate like she had never seen food before. Then she said, smaller than before, "Did Grandma really say all that about me?" I looked at her. She said the truth about all of us. Brooke's eyes filled, but this time she did not turn the room toward her tears. She just nodded once. That was the closest thing to growth I had ever seen from her. Christmas dinner did not recover. Some meals cannot be saved once the truth has sat down. My aunt helped clear plates quietly. My uncle hugged me in the hallway and whispered, "I'm sorry we laughed." My cousin Angela asked if she could meet Ethan properly sometime, not as gossip, not as spectacle, just as family trying late to do one decent thing. I said maybe. That was the most honest answer I had. Dad did not apologize that night. He stood by the front door while Ethan helped me into my coat and said, "You should have told us." I looked at him one last time. "You should have been safe to tell." He had no answer. That became the final sentence I carried out of that house. Not a slam, not a scream, just a truth left behind like a coat nobody wanted to pick up. In the car, Ethan drove without speaking for the first few minutes. Snow had started falling lightly, catching in the streetlights and melting against the windshield. I held Grandma's letter in my lap. Finally, Ethan said, "Are you okay?" I laughed once. "No." He nodded. Then I said, "But I'm not alone." His hand found mine over the console. "No," he said. "You're not." The estate clause mattered later. My father tried to call Arthur Bell the following week, furious that Grandma had weaponized inheritance. Arthur sent him copies of the amendment, the documentation Grandma had kept, and one short formal warning about harassment. After that, Dad stopped calling it a joke. My mother wrote me a long email in January. It began badly. "I never meant to make you feel—" I almost deleted it right there. But halfway through, something shifted. She wrote that when she saw Ethan's plate at the table, she realized I had not hidden a husband from her. I had hidden a home. That line stayed with me, not because it fixed everything, because it was the first time she named what I had protected instead of what she had lost. Brooke sent one text. "I'm sorry I flirted with him. I'm sorry I liked being chosen better." I did not answer for 3 days. Then I wrote back, "Thank you for saying the true part. We did not become close. I don't want to lie about that." Some stories end with reconciliation because people want the wound to look useful. Mine ended quieter, with distance, with fewer calls, with holidays I chose carefully. The next Christmas, Ethan and I hosted dinner in our own home. Grandma's wedding photo sat on the mantel, not the formal one. The candid one where she was laughing in the courthouse garden, holding my bouquet badly, looking happier than anyone had a right to look in the cold. We sat 8 places, 2 friends, Ethan's sister, a neighbor who had nowhere to go, my aunt and uncle, us, and 1 extra chair. Not because I expected my parents, because I liked the idea that in my house, an empty chair did not mean shame, it meant welcome. My parents did not come. My mother sent flowers. My father sent nothing. Brooke sent a card with 1 sentence inside. I hope this year your table feels kind. It did. That was the part no one in my family understood when they mocked me for being single. They thought being chosen meant being displayed. They thought family meant access. They thought love was proven by how much humiliation you tolerated before leaving the table. But love did not feel like that. Love felt like Ethan waiting outside in the cold because I asked him to let me try. Love felt like Grandma sitting in a courthouse garden, refusing to let my joy go unwitnessed. Love felt like a plate set for someone who had never once made me smaller to fit beside him. My father asked why he had never met my husband. The answer was simple. He had met him. He just never recognized the kind of man who would choose the daughter he had spent years teaching everyone to overlook. Thank you for being here. If you were in Maya's place, would you have kept your marriage private to protect it? Or would you have told your family and risked them ruining it? And if your parents mocked you for being alone while you were quietly building a peaceful life, would you ever invite them back to your table? Tell me in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to see you in the next one.